Arshin Mal Alan, The Clothes Peddler by Uzeyir Hajibeyli. The operetta Arshin Mal Alan, which held a special place in the Azerbaijani's culture, became famous all over the world. Arshin Mal Alan is the last and the immortal operetta composed by Uzeyir Hajibeyli. This operetta was composed while the immortal composer was studying in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The idea about an operetta came up to Uzeyir Hajibeyli while he was living in St. Petersburg. He writes the libretto of the operetta himself and only uses the poems of Mehmet Fuzuli's creativity. The creation of the piece came up in 1913 summer month. Uzeyir Hajibeyli, who was feeling his piece's future success, wrote a letter to Azerbaijan's musical theater's first professional director, Müslüm Magamayev, on August 7, 1930. The reason that I am silent is that I am busy. I am working almost from early morning to midnight. Firstly, I am preparing myself for the exam, also composing a very successful operetta, and with the help of the God, when the time comes, I will send it to you. We can see for the first time about the comedy in the letter written by composer to his friend Uzeyir Hajibayli, who was an Azerbaijani actor. My friend Uzeyir, I am studying and writing the operetta Arshin Mal Alan. But it's going to be a very strange operetta. I hope I can send it in September so you can perform it first. My concern is that in the future we could make the theater work not only in Baku or the Caucasus, but also everywhere and in every city. But we should wait for some while and work hard. While being in Baku, I didn't know the value of my pieces, but here I know that my pieces will make a good job in the future. Your friend Uzeyir. 30 July 1913, St. Petersburg. Uzeyir Hajibeyli's operetta's materials found by the theater critic Azerbaijani reveal that in September of 1913 he might have finished his operetta. When the operetta was written, he firstly sent it to Vasily Kalavati, his polyphony teacher, and then, following his advice, to the director of the Academy Alexander Glazunov. Then Uzeyir Hajibeyli wrote in his diary, "Reviews exceeded all expectations. Glazunov says that there is finally a musical operetta in Russia." The actions in the operetta took place in Shusha. The daughter of Rashid Behbudov remembers the Arshin Mal Alan's creation this way. My grandfather Mecid Bey Behbudalı, in past the Behbudov were called like this, had an unordinary voice. He was a player of the beautiful folk songs, and he was a famous singer at the age of 30. Before that, he had been helping his father. He put silk in his bundle and walked where they lived that time, along Shusha's streets and called out Arshin Mal Alan, to attract the financial girls to look at his goods. The image of a typical seller with a bundle was engraved in Uzeyir Hajibeyli's memory so much that he used it in the plot of the operetta Arshin Mal Alan. According to an advertisement in an edition of the Kaspi newspaper in 1913, the work was firstly played by Müslüm Magamayev and Uzeyir Hajibayli, two of the Azerbaijan's most respected actors. This was at the Azerbaijan's Baku's first theater, built by an old magnate and the benefactor Zeynalabdin Tagirov. Uzeyir Hajibayli played the role of Asker, Uzeyir played Sultan Bey, Agdamski played Gulchahra, and Halil Hüseynov played Vali. The first premiere of the Arshin Mal Alan caused such a great resonance in the society that it had to be played 150 times within a year in the Baku theaters. After the Baku premiere, the comedy was shown throughout the Caucasus and the Central Asia. The operetta was firstly translated into Russian by Uzeyir Hajibeyli's brother, Ü.Hacıbəyli, and his friend Fatali Akundov, and was staged firstly in Russian on June 10 and 11, 1960 at the Mega Brothers Theatre. The comedy in Turkey caused such a great interest that it had to be played 45 times in 2 months. The Turkish playwright Reşat Nuri Güntekin said that these comedies can be compared with the comedies of Jean-Baptiste Molière. The operetta was staged at Paris on June 4, 1925 at the Femina Theatre and was translated into French by Uzeyir Hajibeyli's brother Ü. Hacıbəyli.
Haneden birini kimi avadı eşkim buran Lale terkin kılmazam ley kesilsem bendiden Lale terkin kılmazam ley kesilsem bendiden
First act. The events take place in the city of Shusha in the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan in the late 19th century. The young merchant Askar is bored. His aunt Jahan does not understand what Askar's pain is. Only his servant Vali understands that Askar wants to get married. However, Askar only wants to marry if he sees his future wife and loves her. The second act.
Nedir senin derdin, buna heder eder. Nedir senin derdin, buna heder eder. Nedir senin fikrin, dile tarim ağrır. Nedir senin fikrin, dile tarim ağrır.
Following the advice of his friend Suleiman, he walks the streets dressed as a clothes peddler, shouting Arshin Mal Alan and entering houses where women and girls look at the pieces sold without hiding their faces. Askar goes to many houses, sees many girls, but he does not like any of them. Finally, he comes to Sultan Bey's house. The groom's daughters Gulchahra and Asya want to be released, but they do not want to marry strangers. When he sees Gulchahra, Askar realizes that she is the very girl he is looking for. As for Gulchahra, she is greatly affected by Askar.
Aktarıp taktım seni, sen de mi sevdin yar beni? Gönlü haldır gözüm, sandığımdan dünyanı. Gönlü haldır gözüm, sandığımdan dünyanı. Gel gel maralım gel ceylanım gel maralım gel ceylanım gel. Seni sevdim ya ben sevdim, gözüm dünyanı. Seni sevdim ya ben sevdim, gözüm görmür özgeni.
Sultan Bey likes Asker's Out Jahan, and Asker says that if Sultan Bey gives him Gülçehre, he will agree that his aunt will be Sultan Bey's wife. This offer infuriates Sultan Bey, and he drives the clothes peddler out of the yard. The third act. Süleyman finds a way out again. He came to Sultan Bey's house and advised to let Gülçehre to get married to the rich merchant Asker. Sultan Bey agrees to give his daughter to Asker, but Gülçehre, who loves the clothes peddler, disobeys her father. Asya, who saw Süleyman by chance, also likes him. Asker's servant Veli meets Telli and realizes that he loves her.
Koyhanı nipe yapar mısın? Bilen söylesin. Koyhanı nipe yapar mısın? Bilen söylesin. Sen de cennet olasın, ben de bize yuvarlak. Sen de cennet olasın, ben de bize yuvarlak.
Kulum var.
Ne?
Kulum var.
Var.
Kulum var gelirim.
Birine gelerse,
Bile bile yarımsın.
bile bile canımsan.
The fourth act. Gülçehre is brought to Asker's house. She takes off her headscarf, wraps it around her neck and wants to hang herself. At this time, the songs of the clothes peddler come from behind the scenes. Gülçehre listens to the music in confusion and then begins to flutter in the room where she can't find a way out.
Gülçehre.
Suddenly, Asker enters the room and Gülçehre realizes that he is a clothes peddler. Appreciating the creativity of his friends, Sultan Bey again asks the permission to marry Jahan. Süleyman suggests Asya marrying him, and Telli agrees to marry Veli. In the end, 4 wedding ceremonies are held. People's artist of Azerbaijan, Uzeyir Hajibeyli, said about the operetta. Most of all, I like the roles of Asya and Gülçehre in this operetta. I have always wanted to play one of them. But soon my dreams become true. With the advice and initiative of the distinguished master of stage, Abbas Mirza Sharifzadeh, I played the roles of Asya and Gülçehre in this operetta at various times. The late Uzeyir Hajibeyli always told me when he met me, Suriya Hanım, it is like you were born to play these characters. I am always satisfied with your work. I got happier by these words of the composer himself and was motivated to play the next scene much more better. Uzeyir Hajibeyli's strong aesthetic beliefs are reflected in the principal ideas, in the inner meaning of the work, and in the essence. The operetta is rich with shades of national characteristics. Opinions of critics. Musicologist Viktor Gorodinsky wrote, "Song tunes composed by Uzeyir Hajibeyli in the style and mood of national music with a sense of festivity and sharp humor are able to turn into real folk melodies in a short time." According to musicologist Gubat Kasimov, Arshin Mal Alan is at the same level with the examples of world classical music in this genre. Art critics Nigar Aliyeva and Boris Zabolotsky believe that Arshin Mal Alan is the beginning of a new qualitative period in Uzeyir Hajibeyli's creative activity. Music in the operetta. In his book, Features of the Style and Dramaturgy of Uzeyir Hajibeyli's Musical Comedies, musicologist Kanlar Malikov pays attention to the general intonation of the musical features of Gülçehra and Asker. The images of the other heroes are expressed in the style of genre and everyday life. Here you can see cheerful songs and dances, festivities, funny colors and scenes. The music of the operetta Arshin Mal Alan has an important and deep tie with the national folklore. The composer subtly recreates the intonations of Azerbaijani national dances and musics in his work. For example, the folk song Galanın Dibinde is performed by the girl choir in the second act. The song Canlar İçinde Canıma Ay is Sultan Bey's verses. The intonation of Tarakeme dance is felt in the Asyes dance, and the intonations of Boynunda Var Sarılıq in the overture of the operetta. Song Canlar İçindeki Canım Ay, the music of which is based on the Mugam style, is considered to be the only folk music completely used by Hajibeyli. According to musicologist Zemfira Safarova, our composer professionally revived the spirit of national music in the comedy Arshin Mal Alan. Calling the work a comic opera, musicologist Abram Gazanpur wrote, "The colors of the genre in Hajibeyli's opera are organically combined in the revival of national melodies, lyrics, life and typical characters. As the music comes from a folk source, its melodies are also nationalized, and despite the fact that everything ended well, the author shows that otherwise the fate of the heroes could not have been so heartwarming." The melodies of Arshin Mal Alan also contribute to the creation of concert transcripts, and the best of them is Nina Karnitsky's Fantasy for violin and piano. There are no negative heroes in the comedy. The heroes of the operetta Arshin Mal Alan are divided into pairs. Each of these couples represents a certain segment of society. They differ from each other in many aspects. Famous Polish playwright Sergei Pawlowski wrote, "For the first time, I listened to Asker's aria performed by the great singer Rashid Beybudov. Then I watched the film Arshin Mal Alan starring Rashid Beybudov. I was fascinated by this work. After a while, the beloved singer would return to Poland for another tour. This time I listened to Asker's aria in Polish. After the next concert, I approached Rashid Beybudov and told him that I wanted to translate Arshin Mal Alan into Polish. The singer welcomed my wish."
Gülmeden ey bəxti yoxsa kamidir mümkün değil. Böyle kim ol dilrubabi derdidir mən derdimən.
Uzeyir Hajibeyli considered it a mistake to describe Asker as a supporter of the renewal, wrote in the article Notes on Arshin Mal Alan published in the Communist newspaper on April 11, 1938. The bourgeois heading the society, who felt the exposure of its actions in this work, began to explain the idea of Arshin Mal Alan completely opposite of its real meaning in order to avoid the blames. Some idealized Asker as a clear supporter of modernization. But this is a completely wrong explanation. Asker is a person who approaches everything as a merchant. If he wants to get married, he does so only after seeing his wife, and not because he is an innovator, but because he is a merchant. He values a girl he will marry in the way as if he sells a clothes piece. Just as the piece is good or bad, the girl may be blind, lame, and unworthy. That's why the merchant sees the goods and decides to buy them. In addition, the girl must be from the proper family. According to Rashid Bey Budov, who played the role of Asker, the merchant is a typical image of thousands of clothes peddlers of his time. In fact, the desire to see the girl he is going to marry before sitting at the marriage table motivates a wealthy merchant to become a clothes peddler. Gülçehra is characterized by deep distress and dissatisfaction with life behind closed doors in her father's house. Delicate and poetic Gülçehra finds in herself a great, unstoppable force to fight against everything that prevents her from the idea of love and choice, which was considered impossible at that time. She does not hide her love for the poor clothes peddler. Girl prefers death to forced marriage. Fazoli's poetry perfectly reflects the spiritual worries, sorrows and joys of Asker and Gülçehra, the main characters of the comedy. This can be seen in the aria sung by Asker in the first act in the Bayat-ı Şiraz mode, accompanied by a tar, in the second act in the Segah and Osmani modes by Gülçehra, as well as in the Bayat-ı Şiraz mode in the third act. Gradually, from performance to performance, Uzeyir Hajibeyli improved his work, creating new melodies, replacing the mugam improvisational accompaniment of tar with a polyphonic symphony orchestra. The changes and additions were also added to the second act of Asker and Gülçehra.
Nedir aşık bilmezdim, seni gördüm ben doldum.
Süleyman and Asya. Asya still follows the traditions of that time, but she could never love a clothes peddler. In accordance with the requirements of those days, she dreams of a handsome life partner who fits the social status of her family and at the same time loved by her. Although two women of the same age live in the same period and even in the same family in the operetta, different assessments of family life and happiness add a special color to the operetta.
Güzelim yar güzelim, bir sözüm var güzelim. Bu yazık yarına herden bir nezer sal güzelim. Bu yazık yarına herden bir nezer sal güzelim.
When her heart is pounding with such desires, she meets Süleyman, whose worldview is similar with Asya's in some way, which turns their chance meeting into mutual love. Uzeyir Hajibeyli wrote about Süleyman's character. Asker's friend Süleyman is also a merchant, but he is more skillful, hardworking and cunning. Sultan Bey and Jahan. The images of Jahan and Sultan Bey stand out as representatives of the old era. They do not even consider the possibility of changing their centuries-old way of life. But at the same time, they also want family happiness. This is confirmed by Sultan Bey's sentence of 1 mullah, 3 manats, and a shekel loaf, that's all. Aunt Jahan embodies a feudal way of life. On January 10, 1919, Uzeyir Hajibeyli wrote in the Azerbaijan newspaper that Alakbar Hüseyinzadeh played the role of Sultan Bey under the pseudonym Mizrab. Mr. Hüseyinzadeh, whose artistic talent is undeniable, revived the image of Sultan Bey, which reflects the characteristics of most of the Azerbaijani beys, so that the type described by the author has completely disappeared. Jahan does not understand Asker's grief, but Jahan likes his trick. When she sees Sultan Bey, Aunt Jahan does not hide her face under the headscarf, contrary to the required rules. This scene is considered to be one of the central scenes in revealing the idea of comedy, and it makes the audience laugh. Vili and Tilly. Vili and Tilly are smart, open-hearted, and smiling servants. Our composer created these images with general accuracy and artistic color. The features of the individuals of our people were skillfully and purposefully seen in their images, makes them the public's favorites. The piece of Mugam is an improvisational composition performed on the segar after Tilly's song in a style similar to Shikasta. Despite being a small piece, this piece reinforces Tilly's longing for love and her desire to be loved. This piece of Mugam is strongly recited from Seyyid Azim Shirvani's Ghazal You Will Be. It is interesting that Uzeyir Bey used Fizoli's ghazals in the text of arias made in the style of European vocal art, but Seyyid Azim Shirvani's work was addressed on that stage. The ghazal is written in the aruz. Aruz Vizni or aruz prosody is a kind of Turkic poetic rhythm. The earliest founder of this versification system was Khalil ibn Ahmad. He used the ancient name of his hometown Aruz to name it. There were 16 kinds of modalities of aruz at first.
Ben öyle bilirdim ki mənə yar olacaqsan. Aləmdə mənə yar vəfadar olacaqsan.
I thought you would be with me. You would be my half loyal to me in the world. In this piece of Mugam, based on the left-wing Segah movement, the singer's performance is given by the installation of drums and accordions. The couple adds a deeper meaning to the comedy. Everyone has a right to experience feelings such as love and happiness in the first two musical comedies of our composer. The servants sacrifice a struggle against Gülperi and agree to a failed marriage, and in this operetta, Telli falls in love and marries according to the example of the work. The duet of the composer, Telli and Veli, make up the foundation for the emergence of new duets in subsequent operettas. Composer Süleyman Alaskerov pointed out that he wrote the duet of Züleyha and Muhammad in Ulduz operetta, inspired by the duet of Telli and Vili in Uzeyir Hajibeyli's Arshin Mal Alan operetta.
Ola şimdi yüreğim var sevgi haradan ara. Adın nedir? Züleyha. Aşk olma sen ki. Yok ha. Hiçbiri sen aşkınadır kişilerin keleği. Hiçbiri sen aşkınadır kişilerin keleği. Meselem adilemin cüre yalan demeyi. Kadın kişi beraberdir sevgi nedir aşk nedir. Avaralık eylemek için bunlar bir bahanedir. Adın nedir? Muhammed. Söz mü sözdü? Elbette.
One features that established the conditions for success and brought the work so close to humanity is the unity between text and music. The libretto itself is perfection, but the maturity of the music has a stronger aesthetic effect, independent of the text. This unity is created with skillful mastery. Future craft who becomes sorrowful after an argument with her father, Sultan Bey, and is moreover moved to tears because she is separated from her beloved one, sings an aria with the words "Everyone is sad because I'm complaining," which excites the soul and touches the heart. In a word, the music of Arshin Mal Alan has a perfect shape and content in a true sense of words, grandeur, fascination, and tenderness, permeating music based on folk melodies and enriched with the shades of classical music. This alone makes the operetta favorite for both viewers and listeners. Screening of the operetta. First screenings. Şengül Sarabski Asker and Mirza Aga Aliyev Sultan Bey played the main characters in the first film made in 1916. The operetta Arshin Mal Alan was screened 4 times. The first screening took place in 1916 in the studio of the Piron Brothers joint stock company film in Russia. The film was silent, with singers and an ensemble of Azerbaijani musical instruments placed behind the scenes. The next screening took place in 1917 in St. Petersburg. His fate was scandalous. St. Petersburg's director Belyakov shot the operetta without the permission of Uzeyir Hajibeyli. From the first days of 1917, newspapers began to publish announcements that the film Arshin Mal Alan would be shown at the Forum Cinema in Baku from January 3. The first screening took place, but the composer's lawyer Alimadan Bey Topçubashev, who heard about it, demanded to remove the film from the screening. Although all the tickets were sold out on January 4, 1917, the film was not shown. In 1918, Kanjakov and Co. wanted to shoot an operetta, but this initiative did not realize because Uzeyir Hajibeyli did not agree to it. During the period of the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, the French company Page Brothers offered Azerbaijani artists with the help of Istanbul to screen the operetta Arshin Mal Alan. However, with the establishment of the Soviet regime, this joint project failed. 1945 screening. In 1943, Azerbaijani artists came to Iran for a cultural program. They took part in the screening of the Hollywood film Arshin Mal Alan. After the film, they read in the subtitles that the director of the film was Tigranov, and the author of the screenplay and music was someone else. The artists conveyed this to Uzeyir Hajibeyli. In turn, Hajibeyli protested and applied to Stalin. In a short time, he managed to screen the film Arshin Mal Alan in Azerbaijan. The script of the film was approved on March 22, 1944 in Moscow. The film was allowed to be screened by the Baku Film Studio in Turkish and Russian. Filming began in 1945. In 1965, the USSR organization Soyuz Export Kino ordered a new color version of the 1945 film Arshin Mal Alan starring Rashid Beyputov to the Baku Film Studio. The musical editor of the film was the great Azerbaijani composer Fikret Amirov. In both films, all the music samples in the operetta score were performed, except the aria of Asya until Lee from the second act. The vocal parts mainly belong to Asker and Gulchahra, so they express their feelings and sufferings. The performers of the other roles reveal their image characteristics with 1 or 2 samples of music. Tilly and Vali, representatives of the ordinary people, are characterized by a musical example, a duet scene. However, the small pieces of Mugam sung by them played an important role in the full unfolding of the images. The connection of the parts of Mugam with these two images shows that this art is loved by ordinary people and is always listened to in everyday life. In 1972, Melodia published a gramophone recording of the comedy in Russian, Turkish and Persian. The list of the events dedicated to the founding of the UNESCO in 2012-2013 also included the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the comedy Arshin Mal Alan. In 2013, an exhibition dedicated to the anniversary of the operetta was held in Azerbaijan, where more than 200 exhibits were displayed. In 2013, owing to the initiative and support of the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, the film was restored and transformed to the color version. Hollywood masters were busy in restoration for 1 year. The staging of the operetta Arshin Mal Alan in the United States was also a great success. The staging took place in 1917. They pointed out in the issue of the magazine Molla Nasreddin on February 16, 1917, one of the newspapers in New York wrote about the staging of the operetta Arshin Mal Alan in the United States. On September 15, 1918, the newspaper Millet Vazirov confirmed that fact. He wrote, Uzeyir Bey's Arshin Mal Alan was a great success even on the American stage. The operetta Arshin Mal Alan was staged on November 26 and 27, 2010, due to the initiative of the Azerbaijani embassy in the People's Republic of China and with the support of the Azerbaijani Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the Azerbaijan Opera and Ballet Theatre, and the Chinese National Opera. The operetta was performed in Vienna for the first time in 2006. The staging took place on September 27, 28 and 30. Director of the Backing Music Academy for Ü.Hacıbəyli was the scene director, and the American Michel Schnack was the stage director. In the same year, a statue of our great composer Uzeyir Hajibeyli was unveiled in Austria. All the works composed by Uzeyir Bey, the founder of the first opera in the East, are loved today. The main reason for this is the presence of the Azerbaijani folk music and mugams at the heart of these works. It is no coincidence that his views are still relevant today. The study of the basics of Azerbaijani folk music is very important for the further development of Azerbaijani music, but also an important aspect of research and music theory in the field of musicology. Based on the Uzeyir-based scientific system, the national mold system is studied in all secondary and higher education music institutions of the country. The services of Ü.Hacıbəyli and Professor Talan for the study of the national mold system by young musicians are undeniable. The program developed by them and published in 2012 is very important for all people's activation of ethnic consciousness and acquaintance with the iris of their national cultural music from an early age.